we're out here again diagnosing a strange vacuum problem on my W123. Now, vacuum problems on these are not as horrible as a lot of people make them out to be. There's a fairly simple way to determine what's leaking, narrow it down to where you can find the problem and fix it relatively cheaply. Let me show you how we're going to figure out what's wrong with my car today. Under the hood of my Mercedes, this is the main vacuum line from the vacuum pump to the brake booster, and it tees off into these little accessory lines: transmission, EGR, cruise control, a bunch of different things depending on what year your car is, what options it had, things of that nature. It could change what all these go to. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on this bundle right here. This controls our shutdown, our locks, and our HVAC system. So what we're going to do is take our Mighty Vac, start the car, and then disconnect one of these at a time, plug our Mighty Vac in. If the gauge drops, then we have vacuum at that point, and the other things connected aren't the source of the leak. So we're going to be looking, I don't know. Let's just do it. We've got our Mighty Vac here. Let's set this up so you can see the gauge as we test each of these vacuum hoses. First thing we're going to do is check our main vacuum supply to this circuit. And you see the gauge pulled down. That tells us we do have vacuum there. So the pump is working. It's not the brake bleeder or anything else. It's past this point further back. So now let's test our yellow lines, which includes that little check valve, which is our vacuum locking system. Gauge doesn't move. So that tells us either the brown shutdown or the green with a yellow stripe HVAC is our leak. Let's test and see if it's the shutdown circuit, the brown hose. Pull that out, attach our Mighty Vac. The gauge doesn't move. So that pretty much tells us it's that green with a yellow stripe, our HVAC system, or something in the HVAC system. Just to confirm that, we'll plug the shutdown circuit back in and test it with the HVAC unplugged. And so with that done, the gauge immediately pulls down, which tells us we've got vacuum at the inlet, at the locking system, at the shutdown system. All of those are good. Our leak has to be this green with a yellow stripe, which is our HVAC system. So let's move inside of the car now and see if we can track down which pod or which valve it is. So with our Phillips screwdriver now, of course my wooden trim panel is gone because it's so badly warped it basically doesn't fit anymore. So we'll look into fixing that at some point, but we can take these two screws out, top left and top right. Now I'm probably going to have to sneak my way in here. Okay. Climate controls out of the way. Let's look back in here. Do we have something popped off? Is it our recirculation mod over here? It seems to be attached fine. So I wonder if the problem is in between here and there. Let's pull off our kick panel here. Okay, with our kick panel removed, let's look up under here. It's our vacuum line. And here, our green with a yellow stripe is the inlet to the HVAC controls, which are over here. We've got these other hoses. There's this pink pod right here that you can see that is fed by a red with a white stripe, and there's a pod down here that's fed with a red with a yellow stripe. Now, just by chance, with those two being so convenient to get to under the kick panel, I decided I'd pull one off and put my finger over it. So, let me show you what happens here. Probably not going to be able to get all of this in the frame at the same time, but if I pull off this red with a yellow stripe down here, and then put my finger over the hose, we drop down to under 20 inches of vacuum. If I put it back on the pod, creeps back up. That pod has failed internally. Let's get us a new one of these and we'll go find out and maybe update the vacuum diagrams for what those things do. So yeah, we'll see you in a minute with a new vacuum pod. So our new leg flap pod has arrived, and what I think we need to do is rotate this thing and pull it out after removing whatever clip goes on the end here. Let me show you the little locking tab though. So if you see right here, this little thing is, I don't know that that ramp will be enough that we can just turn it and unlock it. So we may have to push this locking tab in and then rotate the old one to get it out. But we can give that a try. I'm sure it's going to be a challenge, but I'm thinking I'll go in from the passenger side to get this arm thing unclipped, and then maybe try and just push it this way from the passenger side. I don't know. I need to pull the kick panel off. So let's get started. This was impossible to film, but if you follow my arrows, pull the kick panel off, and climb up under here, you can get behind this ductwork on the passenger side of the car. And back in there, you will find the vacuum pod and the linkage for the vacuum pod. Now what you need to do is get a little screwdriver in between that metal linkage and the plastic arm. Pry the metal linkage toward the rear of the car. Be gentle with this, don't break that plastic arm. Then you can get to the locking tab on the vacuum pod itself and rotate these locking things to where they're in that open section and pull the whole assembly out. Then install the new one in reverse. Our new pod is in there all nice and shiny, aside from my fingerprints. So we can reconnect our vacuum line and then put our kick panels and everything back on. Now keep in mind, this is going to be basically the same process, just perhaps more of a chore for any of the other vacuum pods. So like this one here, or you know, the defroster flap, center flaps that are behind the glove box. It's going to be a pain, but at least this one was easy. We can just stick that hose back on. That's pretty much all there is to that. Getting the parts proved to be more of a challenge than actually fixing the problem. So remember, check the website trythistv.com for the latest, most up-to-date vacuum diagrams, and those will always be freely available on there. So whenever I get a chance to update them and improve them, I'm going to. Obviously it's a work in progress, but hopefully it has been useful to you and helps you track down the weird vacuum related problems that we tend to have with our old cars. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.